So I got recommended this video because YouTube understands me very, very well. It's labeled The Impossible Development of Kingdom Come Deliverance. Now, if you don't know me, I love me some KCD and I love me some Warhorse. And I've always thought the development of KCD, like the fact that we have it, is remarkable because it's a medieval, like, RPG sim. Like, it's pretty hardcore as well. On paper, it shouldn't work. Like, it should not have mass market appeal. It should not be popular because it is so like hardcore and special, but I'm happy about it. I'm happy about it. Yeah, Sneaky Pickle, I think initially recommended it on our Discord for members and Twitch subs and stuff. And it's fire. It's fire. So we're going to check it out. It's from Devoid, as you can see here on YouTube. We're going to check it out and see what this development cycle looked like. I'm mainly interested to hear like the early ideas coming from Daniel Vavra, who of course was one of the head honchos behind the Mafia games back in the day, which are also some of my favorite games of all time. So let's see what they've got to say. Check it out.
You've got Skyrim's cool magic, amazing dragons, pure fantasy overload. You got The Witcher 3 stylish magic, monster hunts, a dark world packed with lore. Then there's Kingdom Come Deliverance. No magic, no dragons, hardly any budget. Just a group of hungry Chet developers trying to build the most historically accurate RPG ever made, which back then sounded absurd, but not to one man named Dan Vara. You see, Dan had already made hits, Mafia, Mafia 2. The dude had industry respect, a stable, high-paying job. With his credentials, he could get hired anywhere and have a nice retirement. But something kept clawing at him. He couldn't sleep. He kept dreaming of a game no studio would ever greenlight. He wanted full control, no shortcuts, no corporate filters. And to make it real, he'll have to give up everything. While everyone else was chasing the next Skyrim, Dan was chasing something real. Medieval life, brutal combat, starvation, politics, pain. And somehow it worked.
Chasing the starvation. I do got to give him credit. It's an idea that no executive would have given him a penny for. Because imagine you walk into the boardroom in like 2014, 15, like, hey, I want to make a video game. Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, you made Mafia. You know what you're doing. Okay, what is it? Like a crime, like a Mafia-esque spiritual successor or something? No. I want to make a story-driven RPG that is like historically inspired, has like no magic or anything. I want to have like survival elements like starvation. I want people to make fun of you if you smell bad. You have to take baths. If you misbehave, they put you in the stockade. You feel quite hungry a lot. Like no executive would have been like, sounds great, let's totally do it. Which is why he kind of had to strike out on his own and be like, I believe in this idea, let's do it. And dude, it blew up to the point where now it's a point of like national pride. I brought this up before, but when I went to Prague I guess it was still, early last month, for KCD Fan Fest, I met a bunch of developers and I met a bunch of the fans and stuff. But when we were in Prague, we went and did a historical tour in like one of the town halls, basically, in downtown Prague. And the guy that did our historical tour through like the dungeon and through the whole thing, we asked him after the tour, you play KCD? Do you know Kingdom Come Deliverance at all? And this guy who's like a historian and a tour guide in this historical location is like, oh yeah, I love it. I love like going in there to experience the historical setting, to see all of this stuff that I talk about for a living, but to see it in the game form. I've played both of the games and I'm not even really a gamer, but I just absolutely love it. And dude, 90% of the people that we talked to in Prague, just that were not gamers, were not people that you would ever expect to play video games, had either heard of or had played KCD because it was like a point of national pride for them. They really, really do take a lot of pride in it. And it's something that I can understand why they're proud of, but it's a big deal over there.
Which leads us to how it all started. Dan and a handful of Chet veterans came together around a single vision. A medieval RPG with no spells, no monsters, no chosen ones, just brutal realism set in 1403 Bohemia. Everyone thought he was insane. Publishers laughed him out the room. Where's the magic? Where's the hook? Nobody wants to be a peasant with no powers, they said. But Dan didn't stop. After all, he founded a team that believed in the same thing, a different kind of RPG. And they weren't aiming low. Warhorse Studios wanted to blend the mechanics of Skyrim, the storytelling of The Witcher, the grounded world of Mount and Blade, and the brutal combat of Dark Souls. Their target? The kind of players who love Game of Thrones and Vikings, but wanted to live it, not just watch it. But there was one problem. Doing all this was expensive.
Money. Yeah, well, absolutely. The money is a huge component of it. But I think it also reflects something we talked about earlier in the stream, which was the problem with like some of these AI tools, which is that they are trained on past data sets, and that makes them by definition backwards looking. They're trained on this bucket of stuff, and so all they can produce is stuff pulled from the bucket. And a lot of executives actually work the same way as these like soulless, lacking in creativity AI tools, which is that they look back at previous games that have released and made a lot of money, and they say, okay, we'll just make something like that. You want to make a new live service game? We'll reach in the bucket, take out some Overwatch, and then take out some Guardians of the Galaxy, and take out some Destiny, maybe mix it together, and you have Concord. And that was like the whole thing. And of course it comes out, it's soulless, lifeless, and sucks. And it's because they didn't really create anything. They just formed it and squished it into something different, you know? And I think that that is something that unfortunately has been a point of common frustration for a lot of these guys, is that they'll pitch an idea like a KCD2 that to you and I sounds awesome, and that there's nothing else really like it on the market. But because it's not just like Skyrim 2, people are like, oh, it doesn't sound like it's going to make much money. Oh, why not just make The Witcher 4? Why not just try to make our own version of that? Why are we doing this?
They had a private investor, but with a catch. To unlock the full funding, they had to raise $500,000 on their own. This was a little harder to do because at the time, mobile and free-to-play MMOs were exploding. Investors were convinced console RPGs were dead. Why fund a $60 medieval sim when microtransactions were making millions off iPads? Some publishers even suggested they pivot to a free-to-play MMO just to survive. Despite all this, they decided to start a Kickstarter. This was truly make or break for Kingdom Come Deliverance. They put everything into that campaign: a cinematic pitch, a low-funded prototype, and Dan staring down the camera telling the world no dragons, no magic, just history. And somehow it caught fire. Over 1.1 million raised,
yeah, buddy.
35,000 backers. A demo that barely ran, but people wanted it.
Yeah, it's sad to see how narrow-minded publishers are. It really restricts the originality of new games. I'm glad this one was funded over 4x. Shut up and take my wallet. Only 8 hours left. Such a journey. Been following since the beginning. Can't wait to play. Bro revealed KCD2 11 years ago. You guys are awesome. Consider me sold. I will pledge at the end of the month due to budget issues, but pledge I will. Yeah, people heard it and believed in the vision.
And they kept players updated, releasing dev diaries, showing early builds, sharing raw behind the scenes footage. This wasn't just development, it was collaboration. Now they had just enough to make the game, but not enough to survive if they failed. Dan wasn't your ordinary creative. He didn't need millions, just a little hope, even if it meant walking through agony. Because raising money, that was just a prologue. The real war began the moment they opened CryEngine. See, CryEngine was built for first-person shooters, tight corridors, controlled AI, linear levels. Trying to build a living, breathing Bohemia inside it?
You know what they needed to do? Unreal Engine, frankly. That seems to be... I'm glad they didn't go to Unreal Engine. I'm glad they didn't. Because, my God, I was a doubter, and I tell you guys when I'm wrong. I was very wrong about this. I remember talking about KCD2 years before it was even announced, and I don't know if it was on stream or a video or what, but I remember talking about it and being like, KCD1 was so clunky and like rough. I thought they would surely move to a new engine or something, because I was like, it was rough. It was really rough, that first game. Lots of bugs. It had a lot of problems. And at the time, you know, people were just saying everything should move to Unreal Engine because Unreal Engine's pretty. So everybody should just move over there. So I remember talking about that back in the day. And then we saw, of course, what happened over the following years. And then we got KCD2, and it's incredibly well optimized. Graphically, it's stunning. And just all of the complaints and frustrations people had, they just totally reversed it. It was really, really impressive. But that was one thing I was wrong about. I was like pretty sure that they were going to have to change engines because KCD1 was so rough around the edges. But they were like, nope, we got it. Sit down.
Wow, that is not easy. And yet they still tried. Right from the start, sacrifices had to be made. Not everything survived the transition from dream to design. Massive cinematic battles, scrapped. The engine couldn't handle that. Too many soldiers on screen. A fully explorable silver mining city, pulled from the map entirely. They just didn't have the time or budget to build it. Branching side quests that changed based on your reputation, scaled back to avoid breaking the main story. They were bleeding resources faster than they could replace them. There were only about 3 dozen devs, no roadmap, just gray box prototypes. And one obsession Dan kept repeating: no magic, no shortcuts. If it didn't exist in 1403, we don't ship it. That obsession didn't stop with systems. Even the combat was built from real history. Warhorse Studios even took it a step further and went to historical battle reenactments, interviewed living history experts, and studied fencing manuals. Then they brought in real swordsmen and fencing champions, not just to choreograph, but to motion capture actual techniques. They wanted to know, how does it look from the eyes of a fighter when you actually stab, block, or get hit? The team also didn't just motion capture real swordsmen, they had to reinvent the whole system. They couldn't rely on flashy animation sets or predictable combos like Skyrim. Kingdom Come had varied elevation, awkward weapon sizes, and weird angles that no canned animation could cover. So Warhorse built a smart system that combined physics, animation tools, and procedural logic just to control what happens after your sword hits someone. And that obsession with realism didn't stop at combat. It extended to the world itself, especially the people.
Yeah, initial combat, pretty clunky. You do get used to it, and I encourage people, if you want to play the first game, like push through that initial clunkiness, because once you get over like the initial, this feels weird, it actually is pretty intuitive and it clicks with you, but you got to get through that initial wave. The second game, way more streamlined, way better, but the first game is definitely pretty clunky.
Living in it. This wasn't a game full of cardboard cutouts standing still until you showed up. In Skyrim, the blacksmith wakes, hammers, sells, and sleeps, like clockwork. But in Kingdom Come, he's a living person with a real life. If he's not at the forge, you'll have to track him down. Warhorse built their own AI engine completely from scratch on top of CryEngine, just to make that kind of realism possible. Where most NPCs in other games loop through 2 to 3 idle animations, Kingdom Come scripted every named NPC with a full 24-hour routine. A farmer might pull out a gardening tool at 9 AM, go fishing at noon, and head to the tavern by sundown. All without a single line of dialogue triggering it. No cutscene, no scripted triggers, just daily life written into the bones of the game. But pulling it off wasn't easy. Remember, they only had a few dozen devs. No big studio to handle bug testing or fix every edge case. The moment one AI broke, it could destroy an entire town's schedules. Quests would collapse, shops would stay closed, NPCs would disappear.
And this is one of those things, some people are like, what's the point of it? I think it leads or lends itself to the increased immersion, which is important in an RPG. You need to be immersed in the world. But it can be used in clever ways in questing too, where it's like, you got to go find this target. He does this in the day, he lives here, and he works here. And then you can kind of connect the dots. Okay, so he's going to be at his house when he wakes up in the morning. If I want to jump him or rob him, maybe is the task at hand. I'm going to go find him and jump him when he's walking home from work. And so I'm going to wait till nightfall, and then I'll get him when he's coming back home from the tavern. And you can kind of connect all those dots based on his routine and schedule. It was actually something that AC Origins actually experimented with back in the day in 2017. It's one of the big things I was frustrated that they cut for Valhalla and Shadows as well. I think it was in Odyssey as well, but they had full routines for all the NPCs and all of the AI in the game. So there were missions and stuff in AC Origins where you needed to track a guy walking from one village to Alexandria, and he was going to leave at sunrise. So you cycle the time forward to morning, and then you would follow this target all the way through the map to Alexandria. And it was genuinely like a cool use of that tech that they had built out. I'm glad they kept it here because they had it for Origins. Yeah, Clara says they had it in Odyssey as well. I think Valhalla was the first one to cut it, and then Shadows also cut it. I was hoping they would have kept it because it was coming from Quebec, but they also cut it in Shadows.
And then there was no roadmap, no example to follow. Skyrim had radiant AI. Other studios used crowd simulation or hard-coded scenes. Warhorse, they were inventing a new way to simulate life from scratch and hoping it didn't fall apart under its own weight. You see this NPC? This is his brain. It keeps branching and branching. It looks very complicated to the point it makes your head hurts. This is why most RPGs fake it, but Kingdom Come doesn't. And that's what makes it so immersive. And it wasn't just the systems or the AI, even the performances were handcrafted to feel real. Dan said the game included 60 hours of fully voiced dialogue and 3.5 hours of motion capture cutscenes, performed by over 50 actors. He personally auditioned more than 200 people across Prague and London just to find the right voices for Bohemia.
Don't even talk to me about it. He's all done in. I never saw so much blood come out of anyone's anus before.
And that raised a new challenge. What kind of English should they speak? British, American, something else entirely? Warhorse debated every detail because the wrong dialect could kill the immersion. Warhorse spent weeks debating this, even asking players. Eventually they landed on a kind of gritty Shakespearean middle ground, accessible enough to understand, but authentic enough to feel period appropriate. But they didn't stop there. Each actor's face was scanned 24 times, letting the animators generate 60 different expressions to make conversations feel raw, human, and grounded. Every piece was handcrafted, every detail obsessed over. Then after years of struggle, their hard work finally seemed to be paying off. And then it launched.
Oh my god,
shit.
that's so creepy.
Fucking terrifying. Holy shit.
They're all T-posing.
That dude's also there like,
Oh!
It was a mess. Guards stuck in doorways, glitched NPCs, broken quests, floating horses, crashing menus. It wasn't polished, it wasn't stable, but somehow it still hit. It topped Steam's bestseller list on release day, with peak concurrent players of nearly 96,000, exceeding Skyrim's own launch peak on the platform. Within just 2 days, the game sold 500,000 copies, including 300,000 on Steam and over 1 million units within 2 weeks. Kingdom Come Deliverance launched like a miracle held together with duct tape, but the team at Warhorse, they didn't walk away. At launch, they dropped a massive 25GB day one patch, and it didn't stop there. They rewrote stealth mechanics, rebalanced perks, fixed broken quest logic, and by patch 1.5, it actually worked. Console performance got smoother, NPC schedules stopped imploding, lockpicking was less of a nightmare. If you ask me, it still kinda is. But then came the DLC. Not lazy content drops, but full expansions. From the Ashes lets you rebuild a village from scratch. Band of Bastards threw you into gritty mercenary chaos. A Woman's Lot gave you a new perspective, a new protagonist. Sirhan's Capon's adventures literally turned into the world's most medieval rom-com. Eventually, they dropped modded tools, hardcore mode, and bundled everything into the Royale Edition. So while the launch was chaos,
Royale Edition.
what came after was something rare in gaming. Redemption through real work. The fixes helped, but that's not what actually kept people around. You see, this was a world that didn't just look real, it acted real, and surviving it felt like a triumph in itself. You were just Henry, a blacksmith's son. No powers, no armor, no destiny. You bled in every fight, starved when you couldn't find food, slept in barns, failed quests. Even basic systems made you earn it. Repairing your weapon wasn't just a menu.
Oh, that hurts. That hurts to watch the sword at a 90-degree angle on the that's like, you know, there's some things where you see it or you hear it and it just hurts. Nails on a chalkboard. You see somebody like, I don't even know what another example would be. This, whatever this is, you know, it just hurts. Yeah. Oh, Oh, yeah, teeth grinding. Oh yeah, sanding drywall for me. Oh really? That does it for you? Sanding drywall? For me, it's the sound of like a knife on a plate, like a glass plate. When people are like cutting a steak and then it creates that screeching sound. I will hear it from across the restaurant. And I don't know what it is, but my brain hates it. Hearing adults say 6-7, yeah, I could see that doing it. Yeah, I could totally see that doing it.
You had to control the grindstone yourself, rotate it, balance the pressure, angle the blade, mess it up, you'll ruin your weapon.
People chewing on clothes? What? Okay, you just said my wife. Yeah, my wife, just in general. Oh God. Oh no. Oh no.
Alchemy wasn't automatic either. You physically ground herbs, steered them in sequence, and boiled mixtures by hand, like a
Why is
medieval
the pot
chemistry lab with
glowing?
real rules. It didn't feel like a game trying to entertain you. It felt like a world that didn't care if you survive. And that's exactly what made it immersive.
Well, I think
You see-
just at the core of it, the world is going to keep spinning whether Henry's there or not. You know, it's going to keep spinning whether you're there or not. It's going to keep operating. All the NPCs are still going to do what they're going to do, whether you are there or not. And I think that makes it feel more alive. A lot of other games, and one of my frustrations with a lot of like Bethesda games of the modern era, is that they are all built around the player to such an extreme degree that it's like literally everything is contingent on their behavior. And I understand they're like, we want to have the player be the main character, and so the player is the main character. The player is the hero. The player is the one that is driving everything. But to me, it also is just frustrating because it feels like, I don't know, it's very contrived, you know, very contrived.
Kingdom Come Deliverance wasn't about escape. It was about survival and the mindset that comes with it. You weren't chasing glory, you were chasing bread. Every coin felt earned. Every bowl of stew felt like relief. Because this wasn't just the first RPG where you could starve. It was one of the first where starvation actually mattered. Ignore hunger, your vision blurred, your reflex slowed. It wasn't just a stat, it was a punishment. And that design philosophy bled into everything. Take stealth. You weren't just crouching in shadows. Your clothes determined your sound profile. Chainmail, loud. Thick boots, loud. But dressed like a peasant in soft cloth, your footsteps were light like a feather. Even your armor could betray you. Players loved how every system, sound, food, clothing, weight was connected to one idea: survive or suffer. This was realism with intent, a game that didn't give you tools to win, it gave you reasons to be afraid. Players loved how every fight in Kingdom Come Deliverance felt personal. You weren't some fantasy badass mowing down enemies. You were bleeding, scrambling, barely making out alive. You were a blacksmith's son, barely trained, bleeding for every inch. Combat had combos, but they weren't easy. You had to memorize directions, manage stamina, and read your opponent. Miss a step, you'll get punished hard. Enemies didn't scale, they didn't play fair. A lucky strike could cripple you, and most of the time, running wasn't an option. Trust me, I know, I got 1,000+ hours. And even when you had the upper hand, it didn't mean a thing, not if you brought the wrong weapon. You see, in other games, it doesn't really matter what you hit an enemy with. A sword is a sword, a bow is a bow, damage is damage. But in Kingdom Come Deliverance, you could shoot an armored knight in the chest with an arrow, and it would bounce off. Because that plate wasn't just cosmetic, it was real protection, molded with actual ballistic resistance. And then suddenly now, your entire approach had to change. Light enemies, swords, stabs, and slashes worked fine. But if you ran into someone with full plates, you needed blunt force, maces, warhammers, weapons that dented, shattered, or broke bones through armor. Your longsword might look cool, but in the wrong fight, it was less effective.
Well, and I think this is just one of those reasons why I think a lot of people bounced off of KCD2, which is, or KCD1 as well, but KCD2 as well. And it's just that it is a game that is unforgiving in the purest sense of the word. And some people love that and respect it for that. But other people are conditioned by a lot of more modern game design, which biases in favor of the player pretty aggressively. And that is It's just a difference in taste. It's a difference in mindset more than anything, though. And I think once you put yourself in the mindset to play a game like KCD, you can enjoy it to such an extreme extent that it's unlike anything you've ever played before. I mean, it is so special and so immersive once you put yourself into that mindset to really appreciate it. But if you are not already in that mindset, and if you're trying to play KCD like Skyrim, you're gonna have a bad time. Like, you just will. It is not that type of game, and it's not trying to be that type of game, but it really is not that type of game. And I've seen that some people definitely get frustrated because they try to play it in that old school way, or in that more AAA typical open world adventure game style, and then they get frustrated and they're like, this doesn't feel as good or even good at all, because it's very frustrating and it's not working. So yeah, I think that's definitely a core piece of it. Let's I got a couple more minutes before Joy joins us, so let's see what we have for the rest of this.
All of this was physics based. If your angle was off, if your sword missed a vulnerable spot, you got nothing but sparks. Every fight made you think, what armor are they wearing? What am I carrying? And do I even have a chance? Should I subscribe to Devoid? Players loved it because this wasn't hack and slash. This was medieval combat, where using the wrong weapon could get you killed. And if bleeding in combat wasn't enough, just wait until you commit a crime. Kingdom Come Deliverance didn't play around with morality. There were no karma meters, no press X to redeem yourself. If you stole something, people remembered. If you got caught, guards didn't just yell, they chased, searched, beat you, fined you. Sometimes they dragged you to jail. And your reputation actually mattered. Steal too much in one town, shopkeepers refused to deal with you. Show up filthy, they'll
Mother of
comment
God,
about it.
you look like you've been assaulted.
Your crimes didn't follow you across Bohemia, they stayed where you made them. What you did in Rate stayed with you in Rate. And every village had its own memory and its own judgment. You were Henry the Chosen One in one town, and in another you were Henry the Thief, Henry the Bum, Henry the Bloody Peasant who stank of garlic and sweat. This was pure genius from the developers. By not going with a global morality system, it gave every town its own personalized identity. The town you're in doesn't know you're a mass murderer. They just think you're an honorable knight based on your clothing. The quick save button.
Well, and what I'm excited to see is that is moving forward in the next game, whatever that is. I would love to see, you know, the occasional spillover where somebody visited from the nearby town of Rate, and they come by and they talk to somebody and they find out that, oh, this little man, Mr. Henry's gotten himself in some trouble. I don't know how you'd communicate that to the player as to what's happening, but I think, you know, it's like, word of your misdeeds has traveled near and far, and now people know about it. Yeah. Personalized identity casually shows a war crime. Yeah. Oh, he's about to mention the saving, though.
One of the most abused safety nets in gaming. It's a safe rewind button to keep the stress away. But in Kingdom Come Deliverance...
Yeah, dude, I will stand by this till the day I die. I think that quick save in RPGs should be completely cut out. I think if you want to mod it, that's fine. I think, though, that quick save should be like something you unlock after completing the main story, or, you know, you have to mod it in or something. Because I think what quick save does for so many people is it actively makes the game worse for them than if they did not use it at all. Because what will happen is if people have access to a quick save, they will use it. And when they use it, they will not live with the consequences. You're right, Moonlight. Instead, they will quick save before a big decision. They'll make the decision, and seeing how it plays out, they might reload and try it a different way. The whole point of a role-playing game, in my mind, is that you make choices and you live with the consequences. That's what you have to do. And for, like, when you have access to a quick save, you're going to try the combat encounter, quick load. You tried sneaking past a guard and breaking into his chest to steal stuff, but you messed up the lockpicking minigame, so he catches you. Yeah, just quick load. Try again. Like, what's the point of having consequences in the game at all if you can just immediately bypass it with a quick load, quick save, back and forth, you know? Like, what are we doing? What are you doing? joke's on you, I spent 2 in real life days making Savior Schnapps. Well, that's just dedication, Strawberry. I respect that. That's totally fine. But I think if people are playing, especially, maybe not in a game like Skyrim, which is already kind of popcorn as far as like a game is concerned, but in a game like KCD, where consequences matter or should matter, I think the lack of quick save is fantastic, and you shouldn't have it. Because I think if you give players an exploit that they can exploit, they will, and they will use it, even to their own detriment. And it's something like, you remember when they launched Expedition 33, and there was a particular set of Pictos that you could apply, I think, to Mael, and it would totally break, because it basically would allow her to double at one point in the damage calculation. It would do like 2x instead of 2xing a smaller number that gets added on to it. It would just 2x the entire thing. It was basically like, you know, the parentheses for the multiplication wasn't there, so it did it wrong, and it led to Mael being totally broken. And was it the sword? It wasn't the Pictos, it was the sword itself. Okay. But basically the whole thing was the developers went back in after launch and they patched it, and they redid the math to get it working properly, so that she wouldn't just like casually 1-tap or 2-tap end game bosses. Fair, I think, because I think if you give players an ability or a weapon that will break the game, they will use it, and then they'll be kind of frustrated that those end game bosses were a total joke when they weren't supposed to be. It was because the players were using this exploit that they had access to. So anyway, I could ramble about quick save, quick load all day long because I'm passionate about it. But all this to say, we've run out of time to finish this because we got to hop on with Jor. But solid video, and yeah, I absolutely do appreciate, you know, any sort of discussion of KCD. So good video, Devoid. I do think it is fascinating to see how they put this thing together. And I think, again, it's just really important to remember that this thing did not make sense on paper. On paper, it never should have been made, because it's just such a wacky, crazy, out there idea to make a hardcore medieval sim RPG. But they did it, and I'm so glad they did, because it ended up being fantastic. So I'm very appreciative of it, and I'm glad we have it. I'm glad it exists. He took my thing. Red flag.